The following is a presentation of the Force Center podcast feed.
From the center of the galaxy, this is the Force Center podcast feed, and this particular episode is Questions of the Force. Our wonderful listeners have questions, and we will try to have answers. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
I'm Ken Knapsack. Sometimes, I don't know, do I have the right answers? I don't know, but it's not a test. We're just here to answer with our heart and soul and minds as Star Wars fans.
It is like the best kind of essay-based pop quiz where we just get to write in what we feel. And listeners can decide if they agree or not. That's always fine. These are our thoughts and opinions that we're excited to share with you. As always, we want to let you know that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/forcecenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. We are continuing to recommend Brotherhood by Mike Chen. It is a book about the brotherhood between Obi-Wan and Anakin. We're excited to dive in and discuss. If you want to give this book a listen, you can download it for free by going to audibletrial.com/forcecenter. Again, that's audibletrial.com/forcecenter for your free audiobook. It helps us, and hey, you get a free audiobook. So there is that information. Ken, do you have any other thoughts before we dive into our questions?
Well, you know, the pitch you just made was, it's the spirit of Star Wars. It's a symbiotic circle. Obi-Wan will tell you this.
Really, I mean, that's what the Naboo and the Gungan needed to come together. Was not just a war. They needed to exchange audiobooks.
That should have been the Qui-Gon saying, Boss Nass, if you go to this link, you'll get an audiobook on us, and it'll help you, it'll help us.
You must see that, says Obi-Wan Kenobi. Maybe that scene is referenced in the book Brotherhood.
Yes,
we will find out. For now, we're going to go to our questions. We got 2 from Twitter, 2 from our patrons on Patreon. We go first to Twitter, and a question from Broom Kid. Broom Kid says, what are your thoughts on the recent Daisy Ridley Star Wars posts? As a big sequels fan, I think it's a big deal since it's Daisy's first Star Wars-related posts since Episode 9. Maybe a surprise Star Wars Celebration appearance? A Rey Skywalker Disney Plus series? I'm speculating irresponsibly. Very understandable. It's totally reason to be speculating irresponsible, to just be thrilled and excited about one of your favorite performers engaging with Star Wars and getting your hopes up for more Rey storytelling. If anybody doesn't know what this is referencing, Daisy Ridley had left Instagram, and in the last, I believe, couple weeks, month, she came back, and she has been posting quite regularly and having a real fun and positive presence, celebrating a lot of her interests and her career, including Star Wars. So that's where I start with this. Is I'm thrilled that she's back on Instagram.
Yeah, absolutely. As you're talking, I'm actually trying to go back to her page here on Instagram just to make sure she hasn't posted anything new. Number one, but just to that whole thing to it. She'll tell you, at least in interviews back in the day, it wasn't specifically just for Star Wars, but it just was what it was doing to her life, the distraction. But at the same time, I also think, I mean, how could you not say that it didn't have anything to do with what was going on with the scorn and hate and harassment and abuse she was taking online. So I am just happy to see her in a spot in her life and her career where she wants to be back and is back. That is a good starting point for me.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I start, is that I really, since she made this decision to be back on Instagram, I really hope it is a good thing for her as a person. And I think it's great for what she wants to accomplish with her career goals. Because to me, it is hard for me not to start from that perspective of, I think it is a good career move. I totally understand anyone who doesn't want to be on social media for any reason. But I'm glad that there isn't a precedent of trolls being able to chase people away, that somebody like Daisy Ridley can say, I'm going to take a break, and then when it is good for me, I'll be back. And I think it's just undeniably good for her career, because there's a visibility, there's a power to having those followers. And it is very interesting that since she came back, she is really embracing all of her roles. And this question by itself is sort of evidence of that, well, if she's engaged, if she's excited, if she has fond memories of Star Wars, is there a possibility of more Rey storytelling with Daisy Ridley?
Yeah, that's a great spot, and but I do think it's at this point, Broom Kid. I do think you're catching yourself. It is wild speculation, wild speculation. I don't mean to be a downer. Also, I'm looking. I did this the day she came back. I went on. I want to make sure I was still following her. I remember I was back in the day, and I think she just reactivated her account, so I was. And I did that thing, and I'm glad I didn't run a clickbait article. But I was like, all right, who's she following? There's a time she had like 11 people she was following, and like Ryan Johnson wasn't one of them. And I literally went, oh no, she's following JJ. Not oh no. And then the next day she was following Ryan. So don't jump to conclusions, folks. Don't jump to conclusions. She's also following Gary the dog. So Gary Fisher. So there you go.
She's also posted a great FaceTime picture of herself eating a burrito. So is she going to do ads for Chipotle? Possibly.
Respect.
Respect. Yeah.
Respect. Yeah.
But there's some great stuff of her posing with a Kylo Ren cosplayer while filming another film. It's a very funny look on her face. Some great stuff.
Yeah, and look, as a Star Wars fan, it does mean a lot to see her posting the stuff, and there's some behind the scenes stuff she posted for the sequel trilogy. And look, we all want. I think we all would like our performers in Star Wars to love Star Wars and love their experience. And that's not always going to be the case. At times, John Boyega and Oscar Isaac have expressed some frustrations with the job, with decisions made by Disney. They haven't been secret about that. Those are two folks that are going to, not afraid to speak their mind. And Daisy's been open with stuff. So I'm never going to live in that, naive world where everyone goes to work happy. But it means a lot to me to have her just kind of really own, and always has owned, to be clear, but really owning this part of her career and this part of this character and what it meant to her and what she meant to it and what it means to everyone. That does mean a lot as a Star Wars fan.
Yeah, and it looks like she posted this. I think it is for it's just behind the scenes moments with the Dream Team. Happy Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. And a bunch of images of her looking through the camera on the set of Rise of Skywalker. All sorts of great stuff that it shows. Training sessions. It does show a willingness to engage with Star Wars and the Dream Team, that at least part of her experience was really positive. And I'm totally with you, especially something as massive as Star Wars that has everything from the deeply personal. How do I feel about my character, about my acting job? What was my experience with the other people on the set? Now, how does the world receive it? Now, how does it affect my career with the other things I want to do? It's so multifaceted. It's so huge. How could an individual human just not have a mix of feelings from joy to frustration, that gets expressed in different ways at different times?
Yeah, and to be clear, when I mentioned Boyega and Oscar Isaac, there's times they've also expressed their absolute love of their experience making all three of those films and everything around it. So yeah, I think you're right. All levels and all experiences of emotions and joy and anger, all those things. It's a job. Have you always been 100% happy at your jobs, even if you love them? No. But anyways, I saw the BTS ones I saw first, and a smile came across my face there. It's like, yeah, me too. Daisy gets it. Yeah.
Big smile. If we were going to join Broom Kid in speculating irresponsibly, where are you at? What if it was announced that there's going to be some more Rey storytelling somewhere, somehow, and Daisy Ridley is involved? What kind of things do you want?
First of all, I would be happy. Absolutely happy. A big smile on my face. I'd probably even do a fist pump of, we got some more coming, because I do want that there. And the idea of what is the Jedi Order going forward? How can it be rebuilt, but also maybe remolded? I would love to have Finn involved in that, maybe in some Jedi robes himself. That would be great. That'd be exciting. And that's kind of where my mind stops, if I'm being honest, Joseph. Like, all right, that's where I'd probably want it to go. Add in some kind of big menace, some kind of baddie. Obviously, you need some sort of obstacle and friction. Maybe the friction is just the logistics of setting up a new school. We're out of paper. We're out of supplies. I would obviously want something more, but that's kind of where my mind goes. I think in time it would work. I don't know personally if I think it's the right time. And I don't mean that in some big negative way. Just like maybe just a year or two more to let that all breathe. It's just my own personal thought and taste.
Yeah, I think so. I think I agree with you. Definitely a big smile on my face. I love Daisy Ridley's performance as Ray. I love the character of Ray, and I want more. I think there's a part of me that my first choice would be wait, not that much longer in the big picture, right? Wait,
Mhm.
10 years, which sounds long, but life
Right.
flies, right? And 10 years from now, slightly different perspective from the actors, but also 10 years from now, the sequel kids are running the show.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? We're in this era, maybe more than 10. We'll see how fast culture moves along, right? But we're in this era now where sometimes the prequels have been loved for so long now that sometimes people even doubt that they were hated. And
Yeah.
people have to get out the receipts and go, no, a lot of people were very mad about these films, right? But that generation has come of power that grew up
Mm.
with the prequels and loves the prequels. So we just
Yeah.
did that story on the news show this week where they're discussing Funko Pops. And like, of course, we're going to start with the prequels because we here at Funko
Yeah.
know that people love the prequels. So it's powerful to think after everything we've gone through with the sequels, like if there is a Ray story, a Finn story, all of them story, a Rose Tico story, a little bit down the road when the sequels are remembered now as revered favorites.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, and what I'm saying, it's not exact time for me. It just means giving a little bit of that time to what you're talking about, Joseph. Just like the different generations to move to the power seat. No one generation can destroy Star Wars. Is something I believe, and believe me, my generation tried in the late '90s. It'll go on. So I think you're right. Just a few more years, just to get the characters in a different time. But that's now story logistics and everything there. So anyways, but at the end of the day, it's all potentially exciting.
And then there is that other part of me that's like, yeah, but also like, I think that's my first thought. I think that's my deepest thought. But then there's that other part of me is like, yeah, but if they announced the building of the Jedi Order, right? Daisy Ridley starring as Rey Skywalker in, the new Jedi Order, maybe a different title. But yeah, if that involved Finn, that would be great. But that's a thing that has been so very important to Star Wars storytelling of what is the philosophy? How do you train? How do you offer the choice to students to be a part of it? How do you take from the past what has been the true good heart of the Jedi? And how do you address some of the flaws of the past? So the idea to have a show like that's the whole point. Rey deciding what that is and having some presence or some conflict, so an actual antagonist to literally fight that somehow represents that,
Yeah.
Is there, an old scarred Jedi who survived everything up to this point and believes they shouldn't has fallen to the dark side and thinks it tries to stop her,
Yeah. Ooh,
like
yeah,
you could find lots of creative ways to represent the obstacle to starting the new order and making it concrete. But that is exciting to me.
exciting. And put this out there. If you were 10 when you watched Force Awakens, you're getting ready to graduate high school and getting registered to vote and getting ready to head out to the real world. So time flies. And the next generation might want these stories sooner than I do. And I want them pretty soon.
Yeah. Time is moving forward, and so will we. To a great question from Christopher Lamb. Christopher did a multi-tweet thread to ask a nice, complex question. So we're going to dive in. Here's what Christopher has to say. One of my favorite qualities of Star Wars under Disney is that it perpetuated the franchise's focus on philosophy in imparting virtue over bombast and didn't treat the Force as a superpower. Great examples of this are Obi-Wan versus Maul, the Bendu in Luke in The Last Jedi explicitly stating the Force is not a power you have. As much as I love the franchise, Marvel is getting more ungrounded and overpowered, and it's working for them financially. The fans love it, and I feel like we're starting to see that a little with Star Wars. I felt The Rise of Skywalker treated the Force more like a superpower, and a good portion of the fan base still views the Force like that and wants that. They want ships pulled out of the sky and Jedi to take out people like Vader in Rogue One, Luke and the Dark Troopers, etc., the badass stuff, which I totally get, says Christopher. Considering supply and demand and the business side, are you nervous, as I am, about Star Wars losing its roots? How can Star Wars and Force users grow without giving in to the temptation to overpower them, especially when one of the fundamental principles of Star Wars is pacifism. I got so excited, I tried to say 3 words at once at the end there. Repeat it one more time to make sure it's clear. How does Star Wars not give in to the temptation to overpower them? Especially when one of the fundamental principles of Star Wars is pacifism. There are a lot of great thoughts in here, a lot of great perspectives. Ken, let's go to first just like our big picture answer to the question. Do you think that current Star Wars is in danger of floating away from its philosophical, fundamental philosophy principles in heading into a place of putting more of a focus on power fantasy?
Quick answer, no, which is not this sitting across Christopher from a table and disagreeing. It's just that's my gut reaction to the overall picture. But it's in danger of it every time a new story comes out, right? Or a new story is developed. And I think that's what the producers and the execs have to put the right people in, make the right choices. This is a personal take from me. I think some of the changes in the creative team behind Episode 9 might have had to do with some of the philosophical differences that the movie had with Star Wars at its core. That's just kind of my interpretation of the whole situation. Not saying it's fact. So I think it's in good hands. And what I mean by every time it's a risk, you just tell a new story and you tell a new side of the tale, and you could add some wrinkles in that could move Star Wars away from its roots. We are very, very big on Star Wars roots and the tenets of Star Wars and what George intended. That's something we love studying here at Force Center. We really do study it. I was doing it the other day, looking at Star Wars archives. I have to start apologizing for referencing Star Wars archives, the Paul Duncan books, so much, because I'm literally just having lunch and reading those books. And that's really hard to do because they're very large and 30 pounds, and you're trying to balance a burrito on one hand and a book on the other. So anyways, I'll just start there. Long answer to what should have been a quick answer. No.
Yeah, I think there's so many interesting things to talk about within Christopher's great question and thought that I want to be sure to just answer the big picture. I think my short answer is it is a wonderful concern, but it's one of the reasons I'm excited about Star Wars is that I have great faith in the teams and the creators, that they are very conscious of defending the philosophy and the emotional story of Star Wars and enjoying the whiz bang adventure, which has always been a part of Star Wars, but making sure that it doesn't tip into power fantasy or a celebration of gritty darkness. I think some specific examples of that are in this the recent Disney Gallery book of Boba Fett, which we're discussing this week. That Favreau kind of almost answers this question, like he read Christopher's question. He talks about how an element of Boba Fett's character is that he's a mysterious badass. He's the best bounty hunter in the galaxy. He's the one that Vader goes to accomplish impossible tasks. So a part of his character is he's a cool badass, but that's only a part of his character. And if we just show a cool, gritty badass having awesome fight scenes, that's not Star Wars. Favreau basically says that. I'm paraphrasing only slightly. And he goes on to say, like, you must have an emotional story. There must be something that the character is trying to change about themselves or is confronting about themselves, because it is whiz bang on the surface, emotional interior story about, can you become better? Can you find hope? Is the inside story. So I think that's just like one concrete example. And I think you're right to point it out, Ken. We don't have all the facts. We have a couple versions of leaked drafts of Trevorrow's script. And in my opinion, my reading of those scripts, things like at the end, Rey giving into anger and using that to defeat her opponents, and then Yoda appearing and going, you figured it out. That's the balance, that sometimes you give in to rage. For me, that isn't the philosophy of Star Wars. And I think the fact that film didn't get made, that those ideas, whatever else people might like in that script, is totally up to them. People dislike Rise of Skywalker, have respect for all those opinions. That's where I really go to. If like moments like that, this current group of leaders and creators, Kathleen Kennedy, the story group, Filoni, Favreau, I think they're actively protecting those core principles of Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you can go in and pitch a project that is one-sided in terms of just badass action. Which again, and Christopher acknowledges it in his own question here. Though that's all fun and part of the reason we come to the party. We always call it the pew 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 factor around here of just we like cool things. Who doesn't like a villain in a cape, a red saber, a cool explosion? That's part of it. And the Favreau quote that you're talking about there very much said that's the first step, and we need more. You always need more, and I think they keep hitting more there, at least from me.
Yeah. I think some of the concern comes from me is that this has always been something that's happened in the fandom since the beginning. I was a part of it as a kid without realizing it, thinking like, Boba Fett's so cool. It would be amazing if there was a movie where Boba Fett just took people out for 2 hours. Like, hey, when I say kid, I mean into my 20s. Like, would you want to see that? Yeah. And then I think if I saw it, I would have felt like, something was missing. And maybe even in my 20s, I wouldn't have been able to put my finger on it. But I use myself as an example to not point the fingers at everybody else. But it's a natural thing that all throughout the history of Star Wars, people have kind of clamored for, let's see everybody really powerful. And I like seeing people powerful when it is also a part of an emotional story.
Yeah, you're pointing the fingers back at myself as well. My biggest problem with like Revenge of the Sith and the Fall of Vader was always to me that it wasn't angry, violent, and bloody enough. He did it because of Padme. What? I swung and missed on a lot of the things that were there in the story, which is why we love to focus on that here around Force Center. But what is in the story? What is the story telling you? I was part of that group. I love Force Unleashed. I think it's a great game. The first one's very fun to play. Whitwer's wonderful as a Star Killer. I think it is philosophically a little different. I haven't played it in a long time, and it's not that the game doesn't have some philosophical value and ties into some of the themes of Star Wars. I want to be clear about that, but I think that you can just stop at the button mashing power of that game, and if you only want to engage with Star Wars in that level, that's where you'll stop, and maybe that fuels some of the feelings that Christopher's having here, which he loves to go deeper like we do.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for me, I really just want to balance my love of the whiz-bang adventure, the serial thrills, the weirdness, and the power fantasy. I don't think there's anything wrong with having power fantasy. It is what pulls us toward superheroes and to fantasy of that sort of like, what if I had that power? And it's thrilling to see kind of huge, unimaginable power. But what I really like in storytelling is when you see someone with just a huge amount of power and you get kind of that thrill of imagining it. And then that is also followed up in the storytelling of, okay, what do people choose to do with that power? I totally get what Christopher is saying about the MCU, but just like as an example from the MCU, I think the MCU started a little bit more grounded out of the concern that the movie going public wouldn't come along with how bonkers the characters are in the comic books, right? They start really afraid of magic and even try to kind of science up Thor. He's like, magic hammer might be too much for people. Like, and as MCU got more successful, I think they were willing to go to what has always existed in the comics of these, cosmic deity-like heroes. And without any spoilers, even this new Doctor Strange movie is an exercise in how powerful could people possibly be. But a ton of the movie hinges on, it's fun to watch these characters be impossibly powerful. But the question of the film is, and what are they going to choose to do with it? And that to me is where you can, where I always go to ground power fantasy is, does the story come back to pointing out huge amounts of power are also a huge amount of responsibility to make choices, which takes us right back to the philosophy, into the core principles.
Yeah, and just a quick swipe by through Rise of Skywalker, I do think what Luke says in Last Jedi is pretty powerful in its own right. The Force is not a power you have, but the Force can give you power, or you can use the Force to give yourself big powers. And I think Rise of Skywalker, in a quick summary kind of way, does deal with a lot of what you're saying there. Of you have a great power, your power might be attached to a family line that does horrible things with his power, and you can't change that. So just give into it and use that power to dominate. Like, I want to use my power, and how do you rise above that? I do not give in to hate. Is kind of the final decision from Rey there, and that's just a quick pass by through that. So that's where I kind of. I don't know. That's just kind of my interpretation of it there, and in line with what you're saying there about the Marvel stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that just looking at the kind of how power is used between some of the films, like, yeah, definitely in Rise of Skywalker, it's some of the big, wow, oh, wow, they're both pulling a ship out of the sky. They're doing those massive leaps. The action is definitely amped up. But I feel like for me in Rise of Skywalker, and as always, I appreciate if people disagree, I think so much, especially from Rey, is focused on how are we going to use that power. You know, the instinct to, there's a big beast, the Vexus snake the serpent's in front of us. How is she going to use this power? She's going to try healing first. When she does get angry and stabs Kylo, it breaks everything. And she uses her power very responsibly throughout the rest of the film. As people have said, you don't really see her hacking away at people with a saber. The sabers are shields, their defense, you know. So I think even though some of the moments are much larger, super-powered Jedi and dark side users with Kylo too, that there is a focus on in what are you going to do with that power?
Yeah, and in regards to some of the examples that have been provided here, Vader and Rogue One in the hallway scene, then almost the mirror image of Luke and the Dark Troopers and Mando and a lot of things like that. And they are, as Chris says, the badass stuff, which he totally gets and probably like me enjoys on some level. I think, and trying to choose my words here carefully, we always try to leave. We engage with what's there, but you also just kind of have to leave it up to how the individual interprets it. And I think there's some discussions I see around those moments that just don't align with how I took them. I've always gone to the all that power that Vader shows there. He still comes up short of what he wants. And that's kind of a big theme in that hallway for me. Luke's is a different perspective, what he's trying to accomplish in that scene. So anyways, I think, and you can't change that, and you can't change that discourse. If I may, my one Game of Thrones cross reference of the day,
Please.
Joseph, I have had an ongoing debate with a close friend of mine of one of his favorite, most inspirational moments is in season 6, Battle of the Bastards. I've mentioned it here on the show before, of Jon Snow pulling his sword, standing before the charging Bolton army. And what a heroic that moment that is, and courageous, and he draws great inspiration from that moment. It's also one of the most beautiful shots in the series, and I do agree with that if that's what he takes from it, because that's what's there. It is a very courageous moment that I think follows the biggest failures in Jon Snow's life up to that point.
Yes.
It is a failure where he gave into his worst instincts. He gave into his emotion. He gave into his fear. He did not listen to those around him, did not listen to his sister. He failed to get to that moment and is only saved by the love and protection and compassion the people have for him. And they rush in at that point, Davos leading the charge and all that stuff. And it's all understandable. He just watched his brother be killed. He wants to get his home castle back, so to speak. He wants to kill Ramsay. He wants vengeance. There's so many stuff there in that moment. And he and I have had this philosophical debate now for 4 or 5 years, almost to the point where it's affected our friendship. Where he's like, he's a great hero. I'm like, he is a great hero, but he also failed. And that moment is his greatest failure. So some of these the Vader and the Rogue One, and if people interpret them a certain way, I've tried to get to the point of I have to release that and just and let them have that interpretation and let them have that disappointment in other plot points and things like that. But that to me doesn't mean that Star Wars has lost its grip. It's just, what are you going to do at that point? What are you going to do?
Yeah. I think that's it for me, is like maybe some more of my concern comes from kind of some of the discourse and maybe disagreeing with some fans, or maybe even social media being so limited in nuance that I don't even disagree with some fans. It's just we're not having a full conversation. Like, when somebody posts the Rogue One hallway next to Luke cutting down the Dark Troopers and says, like father, like son, that's not a complete thought. I always kind of brace at that, because like, And what's the rest of that thought for you? Are you just saying like they're like father like son because they're both extremely powerful, and these are both cool scenes where they absolutely cut through a hallway? Like, yeah, no, that's cool. That's the whiz bang adventure. But to me, those scenes are just what is happening in them is Vader is trying to break the unified goal of a group, and he fails, and Hope survives because he fails, even though he has all this power. And Luke is answering the call of a child who asked for his help in, getting past murder robots out of not out of a craving of look at how cool I am, and I'm going to show everybody how powerful I am, not out of vengeance of like, I'm trying to help a child and you're trying to hurt him, so I'm going to get past you so I can help this child. They're diametrically opposed. And I love that about them because they're both cool power fantasy scenes. But which is your fantasy? That like Vader, you can murder people who are trying to stop you from doing something, or is it Luke of like, I really need to help this child?
Yeah. Light side builds, dark side destroys, and there you have it. And yes, they might have similar moves because they're father and son. I walk like my dad too, but we can choose to walk in different directions.
Yeah. Final thought for me on this one is, Christopher points out a lot of moments that I love. The Obi-Wan and Maul fight in Rebels. This idea of the Force is not a power you have is so great. And I think it is so, so true. But one of the moments that I've come to really appreciate in The Last Jedi is that there is this additional idea to this, that Rey has that very funny comic moment of not understanding the Force, right? Of understanding it the way I did when I was a kid. Is like, you can throw rocks. And Luke's like, no, it's the truth. It's the truth that we're all connected. It's the truth that the life and death are a cycle. And it's all of these amazing things. It's cosmic, it's personal, it's spiritual. It's you are your own unique being, and you are also connected to everyone. It's so much more than a power. But then that great moment that, you were talking about, that even though the Force is not a power, it bestows abilities on people. And that is a responsibility. And that moment where Rey says, lifting rocks, and kind of smiles, when her ability, her power to move the rocks saves the Resistance. I think it's such an important moment because it's to me, my interpretation are both things. The Force is this huge, amazing cosmic thing. It is a million things. It's our understanding of how all of us work and all of us are connected. But then it is also, if you can tap into it in Star Wars, it's a responsibility, and how you choose to use it really makes a difference. And you can't just say my ability to use it is insignificant, because it's not a power fantasy when Rey lifts those rocks. It is the thing that needs to be done to save people.
Yeah.
So it starts as Rey's misunderstanding of the Force as maybe a power fantasy of we can use that and we can beat the bad guys. And then she understands that it's not that, and then it comes sort of full circle where like, oh, the power is bringing me back to moral choices, and that's the kind of full circle and balance I'm looking for, is how do you use the power?
Yeah, and I would argue that perhaps the most powerful use of the Force we've seen in Star Wars is Luke going to Crate, and him having to get to that point of not being wrong about the Force is this power you have, but it gives you a power and how to use it. We keep repeating that because I think that's what's repeated in Star Wars many times.
Yes. So great question. A lot of thoughts. I think that is always something. Final thought for me is I think Christopher is really right to be observant about it and kind of watch those trends, and have a desire for Star Wars to always be as complex as it has been, and find a balance between the fun, whiz-bang, thrill, adventure that is a part of Star Wars, and the beautiful, thoughtful philosophy underneath. To always be mindful of that balance is, I think, a great thing. Any final thoughts from you?
No, Christopher, we love that. We love those kind of thoughts. And like I said, I up top, I'm answering with my gut most of the time, and just sharing my journey, and I appreciate you and many others asking questions that force us to reflect on what's inside our Star Wars loving hearts.
Yeah, exactly. And with that, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with our questions from our patrons on Patreon. And we are back for our questions with our patrons. We go first to Jay, who says, between episodes 2 and 3, Obi-Wan goes from hating flying to entering battle with Anakin in a coordinated Blue Angels dance in space. What changed in those 3 years? Were he and his Padawan that attuned to each other in the Force, or had they spent their weekends practicing their pitches and rolls? Love the feed. Keep up the always great work. Thank you, Jay, very much for a great Kenobi question here in the month of Kenobi Fever. We're going to have 2 months of Kenobi Fever. It's so great. I really love this question, Ken. Where do you go with it?
So where do I go with this is almost like a continuation of our previous discussion here before the break about power and how to use it. But also I saw a tweet before we got these questions. I saw a tweet. I wish I had written it down because I want to give someone credit and I can't even remember it word for word. It was just this idea of who Obi-Wan is, right? He's a great pilot, doesn't love flying. He's a great warrior. He doesn't love fighting. That's not what he's here for. He's a negotiator, all that kind of stuff. You get where I'm going with it. And so that's where I go with this, where I think he probably was a great pilot from the beginning. He knew all this stuff. And yeah, I'm sure a little training along the way with Anakin and connecting. And we see some great stuff in the High Republic, right? Of the Jedi, even as pilots, connecting with one another and just kind of organically driving stuff there. So that's where I went. I just think this is part of the magic of Obi-Wan. And in fact, maybe just the magic of Jedi overall, having this great power, but not wanting to use it. And then maybe also just as a personal opinion, doesn't like being cramped in cockpits. And, you kind of lost some of it's not left up to you. Fate, might determine who gets behind you with some laser bolts on their laser guns on their ship. And it's a little tougher to control. Maybe just all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think that's where I really go. I always interpreted it, particularly in Attack of the Clones, and there's a couple of these things that Obi-Wan is great at flying. He's not as great as Anakin. Maybe he's not even as great as Han Solo, but he is a Jedi who uses the Force and his instincts to fly, and he's really very good at flying. He just doesn't like it, and I think it's because of just the whole vibe of like. When Yoda instructed Luke that, a Jedi does not crave excitement, adventure, right? Yeah. That like Obi-Wan is an example of that. Anakin is dancing with the sort of the power fantasy of it, and he enjoys going fast for the sake of going fast. And Obi-Wan is just like, it's a thing I have to do. I enjoy flying as much as I enjoy filling out paperwork. It's just a thing I have to do because I'm just a Jedi on the job. It's a whole vibe in Attack of the Clones that I love of, when he's asking Dooku about getting freed and he's just good. I have work to do. Right. Yeah. That's my interpretation. He does a quite good job, I think, in Attack of the Clones of surviving Jango and Boba Fett's starfighter assault in that asteroid field. He's just not a big fan, and I'm sure a lot of us can relate to that where we have skills. We're like, yeah, I'm pretty good at that. I don't want to do it. I was pretty good at being a manager at Kinko's. I do not crave it. I do not want it. It does not thrill me.
Joseph, I literally had a discussion at one point with my ex-girlfriend where she said, I think you did find your passion in life you're a really great security director. And I just don't think you want to face it. And I was like, nope, that is not the case here. This is why I hate directing. Yeah, no, that is not the case. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah. And then I think if anybody wants to do kind of a deep dive on this, there's some stuff in Master and Apprentice by Claudia Gray about Obi-Wan being a little younger and being kind of into the zipping around and having an experience in a ship. Like, that's not for me. I prefer getting around by beasts of burden where I'm a little more connected to them via the Force. That's a whole little subplot of Obi-Wan's feelings about flight. Yeah, and then the second half of Jay's question, I've always just interpreted the beginning of Revenge of the Sith as, things have changed. He still doesn't love flying. He still doesn't crave the excitement or get a thrill from it, but he's been at this for years, along with Anakin, and they're in sync. And even after that amazing opening shot where they are, as Jay says, Blue Angels dance in space, where they are just flipping and spinning together. in showing such beautiful synchronicity. Even that battle, Anakin is more into it, and Obi-Wan has that moment where he's like, no, R4, nothing too fancy. He's still being like, I'm only flying to accomplish a goal. We did the spins and the flips to stay in sync with Anakin, but yeah, I got no interest in this. Is not what I'm doing on my weekend, for fun.
Yeah. No, yeah, look, the Clone War being this kind of refiner's fire to sharpen Obi-Wan as a warrior, as a pilot, and all that stuff. But yeah, it was great to point out the R4 thing. Like I love drive. I literally love getting in my car driving for hours. But I have other friends who are like, "You don't go 110." I'm like, no R4, we don't.
No, nothing too fancy. Yeah. Any other thoughts on this one?
No, a great question, Jay. I love those little things of, hey, between this movie and that, and this evidence, and analyzing little things and breaking it down like that. It leads to fun discussions and headcanon of Obi-Wan and Anakin training. Again, Anakin, let's go bank left. We'll bank left.
Yeah, it is. I know Anakin likes it when we do banking together in ships. Ship banking. He loves spinning. The only thing that puts a smile on his face. And excited to see if there are any flying moments in the upcoming show. With that, we'll move on to a question from Anakin Crespin. Anakin says, hello, beautiful people. I was wondering if you guys have had time to read Eye of the Storm 1 and 2 by Charles Soule, and if so, what did you think of Markion's story and the true end of the High Republic Phase 1? If not, what's the latest Star Wars comic each of you has read, and would you ever consider doing a monthly comic book podcast? Thanks, and may the Force be with you. Ken, I'll start on the first part of this question that I have not read those yet. I'm really looking forward to it. I know they're an important chapter in the High Republic story and in Phase 1, and I have not gotten to them yet. I'm behind. Have you read those two yet?
I have, and I like them. I'll start there. That sentence started to go on a downbeat real fast, didn't it? But I decided today to answer this as honestly as I could. I don't remember one thing from them. That's not a statement on the comics, by the way. Just maybe not just our relationship. You and I have talked about our relationship to Star Wars comics and, the current runs. We like them, but when we can get them, when we can read them, that just continues to be a big factor in me taking in and not just taking in the comics, but enjoying them. I sometimes feel like I'm racing through, and I honestly I don't remember a lot of the series, but I do love Markion Ro. I really do. He's a compelling villain. So you're getting little answers to its backstory. And I think it's just one of those things I'm just going to have to revisit when it's all said and done. And whether I go out and get the trade paperback or pull the individual issues I have and sit down and read them again. There's great value in doing that. And this I know. And so that kind of leads into the second part of it of just why it would be tough right now to do a weekly look at the comic books. I don't read them weekly.
Yeah, I don't read them weekly, and I want to stay caught up, but I also want to find this right balance because I have read some of them fast in an effort to stay caught up. Like I was keeping up monthly with the High Republic, and it would be just like, okay, it's before bed, and reading one comic with how they're paced, it takes like 5-7 minutes unless I really linger on the pictures, and I wasn't retaining them as much as I want to like really sit down and enjoy a whole run. So I think that's a part of it is I want to wait until story arcs are complete and try to enjoy and retain them as much as possible. Nothing against people who are in a place to really have the monthly comic love. From my own comic book collecting days as a younger person, I know what that's like, and the fun of like, what's going to happen next? I have to wait a whole month. For some reason, they're not hitting me on that level. They just feel like I want the rest of this idea completed so I can digest it, think about it, and retain it and apply it to the rest of Star Wars. Yeah,
and I want to clear, Anakin's asking us to do or wondering about a monthly comic book, not weekly.
Yeah.
But even then, that would be tough. You could ask the manager of my comic shops. He about every 6 weeks he writes me, "Are you going to come get these comics?" Like, what are we going to do? I'm actually going to go this week. Now, the last one I did read was the new Han Solo series that came out. I only have issue 1. That's on my list this week to go get. And that was really fun. I remember liking it. Asked me to summarize the plot. Can't remember. And that's on me. That is me as a reader, just trying to take it all in a big bunch where I have literally sometimes 20 comics on a Sunday afternoon where I'm like, all right, let me pour myself a drink and get through these. And that's just not maybe the right approach. It's not fair to the artists and the writers and those involved with the comics. So I'll work on trying to give it the due respect they deserve.
Yeah, exactly. For me, the last arc that I got caught up on was, I believe, the second volume of Greg Pak's Vader run of Vader getting punished by Palpatine, and the reveal of Sheev having what appears to be Luke's hand for future resource. And I enjoyed that very much. And I'm looking forward to getting caught up on that. All of the War of the Bounty Hunter stuff, on the last few issues of High Republic stuff, all that I'm excited to be caught up on. I would love to do more comic book discussion, but it really is finding the balance of what content we can cover, because out of all the recordings we do, in all the kinds of episodes we do, that's the stuff that takes the most time, because it is just, it's the time to read it, and it's the time to keep up with notes on it. It's something I'd love to do, but it is a real question of time. And I think if we ever did it, I think we'd probably be looking back on things that have been out for a little while, which is something we've talked about. And really is just a matter of time balance. And maybe even someday it would come down to, well, we're not going to cover every book, but we're going to do, a comic book episode where we look back on that Mace Windu 5-issue run, or, look back on that Lando run that you and I both love, or, maybe even look back on the complete Vader run by Charles Soule and things like that. I think that's what would probably match what we do the best.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to revisit, even for my own, just my own sake, that Leia run that was back in like 2014. So early in the new era. So there's great value to that, and I love the Mace series. I love that kind of stuff. So yeah, we'll get there. And I feel as though I'm at a job interview or something. I'm just like justifying my no to Anakin, but it is the truth of the situation. And I love that Anakin and so many other of our fans love the comics, and they do discuss them in our Discord. So, that's a place that I love seeing it celebrated in the Force Center community.
Yeah, it's an embarrassment of riches. In fact, that Obi-Wan and Anakin 5-issue arc, that would we literally don't have time, because we're trying to cover so many things before Kenobi comes out. But that's got some really interesting, vital beats between Obi-Wan and Anakin, and I would love to do an episode on that. But it's just, it really is about I think choosing which stuff we cover, and maybe that someday that's something we'll discuss.
Yeah, sorry, you make me think of that series. That's an interesting series. I think I need to revisit, because there's some powerful stuff in there about Anakin maybe leaving and what that means for Obi-Wan as a teacher, and then there's some wilder stuff that I remember not taking to. I think it's the world, the community that they're at, that has the open and the closed, and they're at war with each other. And I just didn't take to it then. And I bet I would now. Yeah. Because I'm in a different spot in my fandom a little bit. So yeah, but we'll add it to the list. Early
Sheev interventions in Anakin's life. Fascinating stuff. Who doesn't like early Sheev interventions, right?
Sheev.
A great question, Anakin. Thank you very much. You're getting me excited about finding time to dive back into the comics. Any final thoughts from you, Ken?
No. My final thoughts is I apologize, Anakin. I really apologize. I'll read more.
We will read more. That is it for the questions. We want to be sure to let you know that if you are a patron on Patreon, we always put out a question or a call for questions, usually about every 3 months. And then we try to get to all of the questions in there, usually in order. Sometimes we'll bump something up if it's time sensitive, but usually we just try to go through those in order. And on Twitter, if you're not a patron, on Twitter, it's always our pinned tweet. Same thing. We put out a call about every 3 months, and it's our pinned tweet on our Twitter. So if you'd like to ask a question that would appear on this show, those are the best ways to reach us. Ken, where can people
Absolutely.
find us?
Other ways to reach us include, the aforementioned Twitter, I guess, at Force Center Pod. You can also find us on Instagram and YouTube as well. At the end of this week, if you're listening during this week, May 13th, 4 p.m. Pacific time, we'll be doing a live Force Center Q&A on our YouTube channel. Hanging out, maybe pouring some Tanqueray wine and just answering live questions. It's going to be fun. And as we look forward to Star Wars Celebration, we'll be talking about there. Also, I want to point out, we always just kind of throw it here at the end, but at Star Wars Celebration Thursday, 2 p.m., podcast stage, we are, we being Joseph and myself, guests on Alex and Molly Damon's Star Wars Explained podcast there. Look for that Thursday, again, the Thursday of Star Wars Celebration, 2 p.m. You can find us on Facebook, Force Center Podcast. Podcasts available on a lot of different spots, including Acast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Just search, you'll find us. You can get merch at tpublic.com/user/Force Center. Hope to see some Speculate Responsibly t-shirts out there, some Force Center shirts at Star Wars Celebration. You can support us directly at patreon.com/Force Center. And again, from there, you can get attached to our Discord and have a wonderful conversation with Force Center friends every day about all the things you want to celebrate in Star Wars, or discuss or debate or more. And the debates are always wonderful exchanges of ideas and very friendly in tone. So good spot there. You can find me at Ken Napzok or go to my website, kennapzok.com, for information on the other things I do. Big comedy show coming up June 4th at Doug Weston's Troubadour, put on by Boone's Bourbon. Ryan Sickler headlining, me, Mark Ellis, some other great comics. It's going to be fun. So if you're local and want to check it out, you can go to my website to get more information. Joseph, where can they go for you?
Yeah, you can find me Twitter, Instagram, TikTok is at Joseph Scrimshaw. You can go to my website, josephscrimshaw.com, for links to all of my other comedy and life adventures. If you're a fan of MCU, my wife and I did a big discussion of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. There's a lot to talk about in that film. I personally enjoyed it. So did my wife, and you can listen to us talk about why. There's a very special thing to me in that movie. Very, very special. Anyway, so check all that out at josephscrimshaw.com. But for now, for myself, for Ken, for Obi-Wan Kenobi's flying skills, however good or bad they might be, this has been Force Center.
Force Center.